I'd like to spend my 10 minutes with 3 points. And I'd also like to make a case that Germany's current emphasis on the Indo-Pacific strategy, it's not merely rhetoric or words. Marie, Sabrina, and I were part of a delegation of scholars and practitioners who visited Berlin a few weeks ago. And we, despite spending just a few days, we were able to get a glimpse of the seriousness of purpose of Germany's attention to the Indo-Pacific. My first point has something to do with how Germany and the Philippines' strategic interests are pretty much aligned. And at present, the deepening relationship between the two countries somehow conforms with the current strategic diversification strategy of the current Marcos Jr. government. This diversification strategy is both a product not only of strategic interest, but also learning from previous experience that we can't really put all our strategic eggs in one basket. This strategic diversification might not totally replace, for example, our mutual defense treaty with one superpower, nor can it maybe not completely counteract with our relation with the other superpower, I will not name names, wherein our current relations are not defined with strategic trust. Let me emphasize 4 points wherein Germany and the Philippines are quite aligned, and this is pretty much also what President Marcos mentioned in his keynote speech in that big security conference in Singapore, the Shangri-La Dialogue. Both countries support international law and peaceful methods of dispute resolution. He mentioned the 1982 Manila Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of Disputes. Manila, or the Philippines, cannot go outside this framework. It is in Manila, decades ago, that the world made the commitment not to use military force in asserting their national interests and also in resolving disputes. Second, both Germany and the Philippines share an interest in maritime security. I think that was already mentioned by Georgie and Sabrina. Sabrina also mentioned critical infrastructure, cybersecurity. I think one thing that I'd like to emphasize, and this is because the current government puts a lot of not only rhetoric, but a lot of plans about this, is the urgency of energy transition and climate security. That climate and security is a nexus that the Philippines must confront. It cannot decouple both. As the most climate change vulnerable country, we're also the most, if not the most, challenged in terms of our maritime security. And both domains interact. Finally, the commitment to multilateral diplomacy, democratic values. Marie mentioned from values to interest-based, but for a country that has signed 8 of the 9 human rights core treaties, I think the Philippines cannot really veer away from a very values-based foreign policy. And this is where there's still significant overlap, I believe, with Germany. Let me spend the remaining, I have 6 minutes, to 2 things that I think the remaining years of the Marcos Jr. administration will be focused on. First is what happens next year, and that is the ASEAN chairmanship of the Philippines. As the Philippines assume the ASEAN chairmanship, the region finds itself in the most challenging strategic environments in recent years. Manila has signaled that its term as ASEAN chair will prioritize a revitalization of ASEAN as the driving force of regionalism but also multilateralism in the region, advancing the Community Vision 2045 and reinvigorating momentum. Mind you, reinvigorating momentum, not finally releasing the long-stalled ASEAN Code of Conduct negotiations in the South China Sea. Domestically, the Philippines brings a unique mix of opportunities and vulnerabilities to the role. At present, we're not really seen as, if you shut the house rule, I guess, or not, that we're not really seen as a middle member of ASEAN that can balance multiple competing interests. In one project that I was a part of, the Philippines is the most US-aligned country in the 10 Southeast Asian countries, and we track this from 1980 until present. However, having said this might not mean that the Philippines ASEAN chairmanship will not afford it an opportunity to focus, for example, on peace and security. I think this is the reason why we're emphasizing the Myanmar issue, because this is where the Philippines can really make a role. Climate is also being focused on, as well as strengthening humanitarian mechanisms. Finally, beyond 2026, there is one campaign that the Philippines and it hopes that Germany and other countries can help us, and that is the Philippines is running for a United Nations Security Council non-permanent member seat. The last time we were a member was 20 years ago, and we're I think against Kyrgyzstan. So we're hoping that we could use this opportunity to become a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council at the time we're in the UN, like ASEAN, is severely challenged with multilateralism being eroded in all parts of the world, that the Philippines can also bring to the table not only its status as a founding member of the UN, 8 decades of multilateral commitment, active contributions to peacekeeping, but it will use, the government says it will use the UN Security Council seat to champion the peaceful settlement of disputes, elevate climate security, maritime governance, humanitarianism, and basically act as a bridge between the global south and the major power blocs. With those, I think the homework of the Philippines is enormous, and this is why I think domestic distractions should not be a blockage to the pursuit of our strategic interests. I think I'll end with that.